Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the live, y'all. How are you guys doing on this wonderful Monday? Let me know when you guys come in the chat, y'all. So, today we're going to have a really good conversation. In this conversation, shout out to Angelus. He's the one who suggested this conversation in our last conversation last week, where we were talking about the 5 people who will always get taken advantage of. So he had asked a really good question, and he was saying, I was thinking we can discuss what it means to walk away knowing you weren't in the wrong. One of the issues today are accountability. Some people will mistreat you and switch the narrative. And I have definitely felt this way many times. Many times. So I think that also me being Mrs. Cut him off, cut, you ain't gonna ever hear from me again. I think that this is a great conversation to have with you guys today. So that's what we're gonna be talking about today. I want to ask you guys a question. So I'm gonna ask you guys: have you ever cut someone off? It really doesn't matter who. Now, mind you, I'm on here way later than I'm ever typically on YouTube. I'm on here like, this is usually the time I'm getting off of YouTube. So, let's see who's on live tonight. Have you ever cut someone off? I know some people gonna be like, cut somebody off? What does that mean? Stopped talking to them. Let me say it. AKA stop talking to them. Yes. No. So that's our poll for tonight. Y'all make sure y'all vote in the poll. There we go. So, like I was saying, this conversation stemmed from the conversation last week. So in our last week conversation, we talked about people who's going to always be taken advantage of. And a couple of those people, you'll see those qualities in the conversation that we're going to have tonight, because of the fact that some of those people who have a hard time cutting people off are overgivers, or they can't be by themselves for a long time, or they don't validate themselves. You know, all of these things all kind of flow into this conversation. So if you haven't watched that video, make sure you watch that previous video after we have this conversation tonight. Hello, Marisha. Thank you, baby. Thank you. Y'all make sure y'all double tap the live. Double tap. And y'all let me know how y'all's night is going wherever you are. How's your evening going? I know some of you guys are on the opposite side of the world. So how is your morning going? Let me know. I'm honestly getting over a cold. I don't know if y'all can hear it in my tone. Can y'all? I don't think y'all can. But we're going to have a good night today. I promise. We're going to have a good conversation today. If you have a hard time cutting people off, with this conversation, intend for you guys to get the confidence to be okay cutting people off and never talking to them again. I'm telling you, it's really not that difficult when you are emotionally intelligent and you maintain your boundaries. Hello, Isaac. Shout out to India. Boundaries. There's so many. Just go look somewhere. It's going to be somewhere that's going to tell you about all the boundaries. We're going to get started in just a second with the conversation, y'all. Let's see what people are voting so far. Everybody's saying yes. Everybody's saying yes, they've cut somebody off. Kudos to you, because me too. Is it not rude? It depends. It can be. It can be rude. It definitely can be. But it doesn't have to be. It does not have to be rude. I'm telling you. Now, before we get into the conversation today, if you are one of those people who are constantly being taken advantage of, you have a hard time cutting people off, and you just feel like you cannot change, let me help you. Let's do a one-on-one. And the way I like to do my one-on-ones is I like to do a little free 15-minute consultation first. And with that free 15 consultation, you'll get a lot of information just from that free 15 consultation. And then we'll transition into doing our one-on-one sessions as needy, okay? So if you are struggling with that, book a free 15-minute consultation in the link below so you can overcome that and you can move on and be happy and not struggle with overgiving, over people pleasing, all these things. We're going to learn. We're going to move on. We're going to grow. Hey, Shine, how you doing? So let's go ahead and get into the conversation because I don't plan on being on live all night. I just wanted to be on here just a little bit. And I'll try to keep a monotone voice because I had like throat issues. So I'm not trying to do too much. I'm not trying to do too much, y'all. I promise you. So we're going to go ahead and get into the conversation. So this is how to leave a relationship confidently. And when I say relationship, I'm not just meaning romantic. I'm not just meaning, oh, this is the guy or girl that you really like and you want to be with them. No, I'm not just meaning just that. I'm talking about romantic parents, siblings, cousins, grandparents, friends, teachers, the people who live next door, your neighbors. You can cut anybody off. I'm telling you. Hey, HB, you can cut anybody off. And let me tell you the reasons. Because you don't just cut people off just to do it, right? It's that I'm not telling you guys to just cut people off. That's not the message for tonight. I want you guys to understand the reason behind cutting someone off, ending relationships, not talking to people, right? There's a reason why you do that. It's not just for no reason, willy-nilly, oh, I don't want to talk to them today, goodbye, deuces. There are reasons why you cut people off and you end relationships. Hey, John, how you doing? So I want you guys to understand the reasons why you're going to end a relationship is, number one, they keep pushing, testing, or not respecting your boundaries. And let me give you something else. There can be steps before you just automatically cut somebody off and stop talking to them. You can take steps, but eventually, if those steps are not respected, it will lead to you cutting someone off. So for instance, let's say that you do not do drugs. You maybe work at a job that tests you randomly, and you may have a friend who does, but y'all are friends and you care about this person. Y'all been knowing each other for a long time. Well, they want to smoke drugs around you and they purposely blow it in your face. And when you were younger, you might have thought that was funny. It's so funny. But now that you're older and you understand the consequences of that, you say, hey, man, don't do that. Please don't do that. And then they do it again. What you do is you get up and you leave. Okay? You already told them don't do it again. You don't always have to say, well, if you do this again, I'm going to leave. No, you can get up and just walk away, right? So that is an example of cutting someone off. You could tell them later, hey, I told you, you're not listening. You don't have to forever, never talk to them again. But that's you setting a boundary and sticking to it, right? Now, you told them that one time they still trespass your boundary. Okay, you go hang out with them again. They understand the consequences of you doing that. If they do it again, that is a definite, blatant disregard for your boundaries and your well-being for your life. So what is your next action on that third time? What is your next action? Are you going to continue to allow these people to be in your life and stress you out and, affect your money at your job? This is just an example. That's how you know when you end a relationship. When that person has no regard to your boundaries, whether they know the reason behind it or not. If you say no, who cares what the reason behind it is, right? You don't have to over-explain nothing to nobody. You just say, hey, I don't really want to do that. And they need to respect you and say, okay. Some people are going to want to know why. Why? What's up? If they doing it, they're going to be like, why? Okay, you tell them why. You should be able to give a reason. If you have a boundary, you should have a solid reason why you have that boundary. It's not going to be you just saying stuff just to say it, right? most of the time people have boundaries, because if that boundary is crossed, there's a consequence for them, not for the other people, for them. Let me see what y'all talking about. A lot of people done commented. Hunt for a Valentine's date. Hunting is crazy. For me. Hey Rico, how you doing? You said Sean said, I think somebody cut me off. Ooh. Oh, because she couldn't get on money. Oh, well, listen. She cut you off because she had a desire. She couldn't get it. I guess that's what she wanted in her relationship. That when they pull you from your religion, that's another reason. If you are religious and people around you are not respecting your religion, boom. You can be around people who don't have the same religion as you. That's why you just need to respect other people's beliefs. Somebody said, you childish if you cut someone off. Just say that I'm not interested. Communication is key. Okay. I need you guys to listen to the conversation. Listen before you respond. Hello, hello, hello. Hey, y'all. Happy Black History Month. Ooh. Period. Period. We are golden. Period. Okay. Thank you. I like what Cosma said. That's great. Hey, James. Hey, y'all. If y'all see me drinking water all night, there's a reason. I'm trying to protect my larynx and my intrinsic laryngeal muscles. 88% said they cut people off. Thank you, Rico, because what the hell? So, the first thing I want you guys to know, that if you are afraid to cut somebody off, if you are not confident in that, and you really have a desire to leave this relationship, that means you don't trust yourself. So that's the first thing that you have to acknowledge is, maybe I don't trust myself. Myself has been sending me these signals saying, I don't feel comfortable. I don't really want to be around these people today. I don't really like that person. And let me give you an example, because it can be so small. You don't really owe everybody an explanation if y'all don't have a relationship for real, for real. I met somebody like a friend, right? Like a girlfriend, right? Not like a romantic partner or anything, right? I really enjoyed this person because this person did something for me and I didn't ask. So I was like, I want to repay this person in gratitude. So I invited this person out. We hung out. Hold up, y'all. We hung out. We had a good conversation. And then after that, you know, just the way that the person would text me, it just something about it made me feel uncomfortable. So I was like, should I try to keep hanging out with this person? Maybe I'll feel more comfortable. But I had to stop myself and realize, no, actually there's a reason behind you feeling uncomfortable. And you don't always have to know and go dig deep to figure out exactly 100% everything. You have the surface layer reason, and you have that. You are valid in your feelings, and you can say, hey, maybe I just won't push for this relationship to continue. Maybe I don't have to force a friendship if I know we probably don't have that many things in reality in common. I don't, just because this person did something and overextended themselves to help me does not mean I have to overextend myself to be friends with this person. I did my part in showing my gratitude, and that's usually just enough to express your gratitude and move on. So that's just one example. Sometimes people will overextend themselves, and if you are the type of person who are a grateful person and you acknowledge people's efforts, you're going to want to be like, oh, well, this is the type of person I want in my life. Oh, maybe I should do the work to keep them in my life. And no, that's not always what it has to be. It's okay for people to do things. And I don't want to get off topic, y'all. But let's just say it's okay for you not to want to be friends with somebody just because they're nice to you. or just because you're nice to them, or just because y'all experienced something together, you know? So, like I was saying originally, the first thing you need to understand, if you have struggles cutting people off, ending relationships, no longer talking to them, then you don't trust yourself. You're not validating yourself emotionally, right? What do I always tell y'all? If you lack emotional intelligence, or you want to work on that skill, link in the bio, y'all. I'm not playing. Go get you a gratitude journal that will put you in goodwill to acknowledge your emotions and focus on your emotional intelligence before other people's. Not be a people pleaser. Not be worried about other people's reaction to your actions, you know? So, like I was saying, you don't trust your judgment, right? You are over empathizing with somebody else, right? You're like, oh well, they complimented me 3 times. I mean, they complimented me. You go on a date with somebody, and the whole night that person telling you how beautiful you are. Well, they were so nice. They opened the door for me, and they complimented me, and they paid for the dinner. But he also said he got 2 kids, 2 baby mamas, and he ain't got no car. What are your boundaries? What are your standards for your living? You got to ask yourself these questions, right? So, you know, sometimes people are taught to be overly nice to people, not realizing that they are basically putting other people before themselves. When you put other people before yourself, guess what that's called? A people pleaser. That means you don't feel comfortable, but because you know that this other person wants to do something or they like something, you're going to make yourself uncomfortable to make these people comfortable, instead of speaking up and maybe coming to a middle ground or not doing it at all, right? So again, you want to know, why should you cut somebody off? We got 30 votes, y'all. Why should you cut somebody off? I told you one reason: because they're consistently crossing your boundaries. Here's a second reason. This doesn't have to mean that they're crossing your boundaries, but y'all, I'm trying to catch my breath. If y'all see me, I'm just catching my breath, right? I'm getting over a cold. But they say you are like the 5 people that you are around. So if this is somebody who you're consistently around and they are not going in the same direction as you, maybe you are focused on financial intelligence, financial literacy. Maybe you're focused on your family, building healthy relationships with friends, psychoanalyzing your life. And maybe they're focused on going outside. Maybe they partying all the time. Maybe they have bad relationships and they don't care to figure out themselves. Maybe they don't have self-accountability, right? It's okay for you to say, you know what, maybe our lives are going in different trajectories. And if I'm consistently around you, it's going to be difficult for me to move at the pace that I want to move, in the direction that I want to go. And so you can say, you know what? Y'all, you can say, you know what? This relationship is not worth it. You know, I like you, you're cool, but I actually no longer want to talk to you anymore. I've had to do that with another person. I'm giving y'all a lot of personal stories too, y'all. I had to do that with another person, right? It was somebody who we met at work, and we hung out and we had a good time, you know, just hanging out, being friends. And then I ended up going to see how this individual lived. And it wasn't just the way that the person treated me, because that was already enough to no longer talk to this person. But the way this person lived and treated their child, although it was not intentional, I feel like there was a hint of neglect And I had to call that person. Well, I didn't call that person. The person called me one day because I just never talked to them again. And they was just asking how I was. And I said, if I could be so honest, I don't actually want to continue this friendship. I wish you all the best. But, that's just what it is. And the person said, okay. And then that's just what it was. And to be honest, I can genuinely say that person had a good heart behind their actions. But the actions, the things that were being done was not okay. So I had to put myself first and say, just because somebody has a good heart doesn't mean that their good heart is going to put you in a direction that you want to be. And if I'm around people who are unintentionally neglectful, it's not my job to teach people how to be and teach them to learn the lessons that are around them. It's not your job either. You know what I call that? Captain Save-A-Ho. If you're constantly around people who have issues, broken people who are not working on themselves, they're not doing their job as a human being to overcome and persist and move towards a better life. If they're not doing that for themselves, it is not your job to put people on game. Hey y'all, hey everybody. It is not your job to put people on to the game of life and to give them that platform and foundation to push them up. And that's a lot of people's issues, especially when they're doing well in life. They want to take that and say, oh my God, this helped me so much. I love this. Maybe you lost a lot of weight, or maybe you got way healthier. And it's this one thing that you did. And you want to take that back to the people that you know who this may really help them. But those people don't care. They don't give a flying fudge. Why? Because they enjoy their life. And so the more you try to force them to do what may help them, the more you harm yourself, because what you're hearing from them when they don't do what you want them to do is, I don't care about you and what you say. That's what you're hearing them say. But really what they're saying is, I want to stay in the lifestyle that I'm living already. Or I don't want to do what you're telling me to do. Right? So, those are a couple of things. I don't want to get off. I keep veering off the path of where I'm talking about today. So, like I was saying, boundaries is not a selfish thing. A lot of people struggle with boundaries because they believe that they're being selfish. And I'm going to tell you, like I always tell you, humans have boundaries the same way that estates, countries, cities, neighborhoods, HOAs, apartment complexes, stores, they all have boundaries. What are those called? Rules and laws. And if you are in any of these places and you are breaking the rules or laws, what happens? You're going to jail. You're going to get in a police car and they're going to lock you up. They're going to put you away for breaking the rules and the boundaries and the laws, right? So, exactly. Thank you, user. So, what you need to do is you need to know, what are your rules. So a store has a rule. Maybe the store has a rule of what's some store rules? No, let's do a city rule. City rules have speed limits, right? So they have speed limits, and they enforce that by having signs all around that tell you the speed limit. Many times, most of the cities already did some type of test to determine the speed limit for that area. Maybe it's a neighborhood area where you need to drive less than 20 miles per hour, or on a highway where it's like 60 miles per hour. There's a reason, and it's been tested for that reason, right? So what are some consequences if you speed? Well, running people over. That's a consequence. Running people over is you driving, speeding through a neighborhood, you run somebody over. Or you collide with somebody else, and because you were going at a faster rate than what the limit was, it's more damage than what it could have been. Right? Those are just a couple of reasons why they tell you not to speed. Let me see. Let me see what you say. What about boundaries is honesty, straightforward, spare the rod, hold a feet in the fire if you lied to me. What about boundaries? What? I don't understand that. Arriving faster is the only consequence of speeding. Sean, not you just changed your... Is this a different account? Girl, what? I ain't mentioned Valentine's Day not one time. Y'all are crazy. So, girl, what we talking about? Speeding. Boundaries. They enforce it for a reason. So, for a human being, a boundary could be, I want you to say my name correctly. You know, I want you to say my name is not difficult. Maybe if you have a difficult name, you might comfort, you might be understanding more. But you may want your boss to say your name correctly. Because I've definitely dealt with that. I had a manager who couldn't say my name right, and we were in a meeting, and I said, "That's not how you pronounce my name. It's Meiana." And I slowed down to support pronunciation. And everybody in the room was surprised that I corrected the manager, but I'm like, I don't care who you are. I'm not being disrespectful. I'm enforcing my boundaries. I'm advocating for myself. And guess what? After that, she tried her best to correctly say my name. And if she didn't feel like she was saying it correctly, she was like, "Is that how you say it?" Because she understood that I'm not going to allow you to keep... In my eyes, I see it as disrespect. If you don't say my name correctly, and I've already told you how to pronounce it more than once, then that means you just don't care, right? So, what do we... No, Sean, I don't know what that was. I think YouTube did something. And then Ricky spelling my name wrong, talking about, I think Milana is easy to say. Oh, no. What is your background? It's a light tree. So, I mean, that's a simple boundary that some people can enforce. Say my name correctly. And in all honesty, in other environments, I really don't care if you say my name right or wrong. At work, I want you to say my name correctly. If I'm going through a drive-through, I don't really care if you say my name right or wrong. It don't really matter because I'm not going to see you again. You know, another boundary could be, I don't want you to yell at me. I don't want you to raise your voice in a harmful way when you speak to me. So some people, they'll be like, well, that's just who I am. Baby, no, you are not, what they be calling it? You are not a mob husband, a mob father, an Italian dad. You're not a Boston dad. That's not how you are. That's not how you speak to people originally. I've seen different versions of your tone of voice. I've seen you talk to people correctly. Yeah. You're not going to try to act stupid with me. That's not what we're doing over here. Yeah, Sean, I don't think she was trying to disrespect me originally. She wasn't trying to disrespect me. I just set that tone for the conversation. So in other words, you're uneducated is what you're trying by using an example pointing into a light tree on a wall. I guess so, user. I guess I am uneducated. So, the consequences of your boundaries not being respected is you getting your energy drained, right? So now you don't have any energy. Now you wondering why you waking up tired all the time, or you have anxiety to go somewhere, go hang out with people. Is because you are constantly having your boundaries crossed not enforcing them, and people are not respecting them, right? That's a consequence. But some people don't understand the value of having a lot of positive energy, right? Another one is that, you know, a consequence is somebody, you're having a conversation with somebody, they cross a boundary, and then you shrink in the conversation. Well, that's a consequence of them crossing your boundary, is you're shrinking. Do you really enjoy shrinking in the way that you're shrinking? So a lot of times people be so focused on the boundaries themselves instead of the consequences that happen when your boundaries are not respected. More like letting people know their place type shit. I wouldn't say know their place, because like I don't, what would their place be? A boundary is not to put people in their place. A boundary is to keep you in your place. Is to keep you at a consistent frequency, a consistent happiness, a consistent satisfaction. Boundaries are not for other people. Boundaries are not for other people. It's for you. What's for other people is the enforcement. So the actions that are taken when your boundaries are crossed is for other people, right? If you corrected her, that's when she was supposed to get it right, or it could have been genuinely she couldn't get it. Yeah, for sure. So understand your nervous system is constantly the one in charge of the life. You know, you think that you're doing so much for yourself in this life, but you're doing only as much as your nervous system allows you to do. We have so many pieces of our body. Y'all know I study communication. I love communication. And man, everything that goes into you being able to produce words, there are so many moving pieces. When they say an orchestra, your body is an orchestra. Your body is quite literally an orchestra. There are so many moving pieces just for you to be able to type. If one little piece messes up, that could hinder your ability to do multiple things in your life, literally. So that's the importance of maintaining your nervous system. Because if your nervous system gets shocked, there's an issue with you having a positive, satisfying frequency that you're giving off, energy that you're giving off, you know, the energy moving through your body, that could shock an area of yourself that could affect your life, right? I've seen people, like women in relationships, who overgive. They have a man who is feminine and they're masculine, overworking so that their man can be taken care of, you know, paying all the bills. Their men don't work, or their men work a part-time job, or they work a full-time job and got a side business. And then these women, I've literally seen this in real life. These women get sick because they're not physically created to do so much work. So what boundaries should they have set? You know? Immediate consequences. Exactly, Rico. Immediate. What boundaries should these women have set? That the first boundary should have been understanding your standard for relationships, type of man you want in your life. But you know, so understand, when you have those boundaries and you enforce them, that does not mean you're being selfish. And I feel like a lot of people have an issue feeling guilty because they feel selfish. They feel like they're supposed to be doing something in this relationship. They feel like they provide a value that this person wouldn't be able to get if they were not in their life, right? Hey, Wood, how you been? You know, it's like that person who's like, well, if y'all, okay, y'all, it's the weather. The weather changed and it got me in a chokehold, y'all, I'm telling you. But anywho, like I was saying, There's some people out there who feel like, if I'm not around this person's life is going to go down the drain. So I have to be around this person and be loving them so much and giving them so much of me, or they're not going to go anywhere. But they forget that this person is taking advantage of you. This person is not going to make the change that you so desire them to do. And then the thing about it is that people who are people will always find their fix, whether they're going to get that from you or from somebody else. But because you are the person staying there, you are going to be the person being used for their gain. And in reality, you're not getting anything out of that relationship. You're not getting a happiness. You're not getting a joy. What you're getting is a stress and a depress. Exactly, JP. A stress and a depress. That's what you're getting. Trying to be Captain Save-A-Ho. Don't save her. She don't want to be saved. Don't save her. She don't want to be saved, right? So you, again, like I'm going to keep telling you guys throughout this whole video, is that boundaries are there for a reason. There are consequences if you do not respect your boundaries. The same way is if you eat 10 hamburgers a day from McDonald's and a large French fry and a Coke every day for a week, there are consequences. What are those consequences? You're going to gain weight. Your brain might feel foggy. You might be a little more depressed, right? There's consequences. Even your body will give you consequences before you will even inflict consequences, right? What are those consequences? Like I said earlier, your body will give you consequences for you pushing past your own boundaries. Anxiety, depression, being unsatisfied with your life, those are consequences that your body will give to you a lot of the times if you are constantly pushing past your own boundaries. So, you know, like the person who suggested this content was saying, that they feel like sometimes in those relationships they feel guilted, or the person will try to flip the narrative and make them feel like they did something wrong, and then they will the person who flipped the narrative will victimize themselves, right? So the question for you, if you have a hard time leaving relationships and cutting people off, I want to know is, what did you do wrong? If you're feeling bad by ending a relationship, my question to you is, what did you do wrong? Because if you feel bad, you feel guilty, you feel ashamed, that means you did something wrong. So let's figure it out. What did you do wrong? And a lot of times, like one situation that I explained earlier was, you feel like you're supposed to be in this person's life to help them out, but they're not giving you anything back. It's not a reciprocal relationship. It's a parasitic relationship, right? So some people may feel guilty because they feel like, well, this parasite is getting so much life off of me, and if they're not going to live if it's not for me. Another reason some people feel bad is not because of the other person. The reason some people feel bad is because they crossed themselves. They crossed their boundaries, right? And we have to, that's where we take accountability as individuals, self-reflecting, aware, conscious beings, where you take accountability for your own life and you say, well, maybe I should feel bad. Maybe I did something wrong. Y'all, my son back there asleep. He doing the most. I don't know. He back there doing the most, y'all. So, anywho. So, the thing that you did bad may be that you ignored your intuition. Maybe your intuition told you early on. You heard that, John? Y'all. Y'all, please. So sometimes what you did wrong wasn't against them. No. No. It wasn't against them. It was against yourself, right? Maybe you didn't listen to your intuition. Maybe you stayed too long. Maybe you gave them too many chances. Those are times where you feel bad and guilty because of you. And you're misplacing that guilt in the relationship, right? You're misplacing it. You're misplacing it, right? So that's where you have to learn that, okay, I did do something wrong. I do feel guilty. I do feel ashamed for putting myself in that predicament for so long. And then guess what? You accept it and you move on. Seriously, you accept it and you move on. Now, this is the part that I really like about this conversation, is because some people will guilt you when you stand up for yourself, when you advocate for yourself, when you set boundaries and you enforce them. People will guilt you. And I've had this happen way too many times. One of the more recent times that this happened for me was with people who I worked in a professional setting. I had like these siblings that I had to work with. Y'all, it was torture. It was hell. You ever argue with bitches on Zoom? If you ain't never argued with somebody on Zoom, baby, I wish I would have set more boundaries around that time of my life. I wouldn't be doing that. I wouldn't have done it because that's out of my character. But I did set some boundaries. So, people who have control issues, majority of the time it's people who have control issues, right? Those are going to be the people who are going to give you a hard time when you set a boundary and you enforce it. Because they want you to abide by their life. They have an issue with people who do not play small, who do not allow other people to control their life, right? Those are going to be those people who have control issues. They want you to be on your hands and knees asking them for forgiveness when they stepped on your feet 10 times, right? So they gonna gaslight you. They gonna play the victim. They gonna rewrite the story. And when I tell you these people are gonna try to make you responsible for their actions, when I tell you that I've experienced this, and it was the most psychotic experience in my entire life, and I had to stand 10 toes for weeks in hell being tortured. I had to experience doing something, and then people telling me no, they don't like what I did, and then the next week they do the exact same thing. I've had to experience it myself. When I tell you there are people out there who are very delusional. They are very delusional. And people think that maybe it's because of their age. People think that because they're older than you, or they're higher in their career, or for whatever reason that they have all the material things that they desire in their life. There are people who assume that because they have something that you don't have, whether again it's age, whether it's materials, it's money, people will become delusional. You was with somebody. No, I said this is in a professional setting. It was in a professional setting. I was working with people in a professional setting, and they were gaslighting me, and they were trying to control me because I am a particular age, and they were 2 times my age. And they thought that because they was old as fuck, that they was going to tell me what to do when they couldn't do what I was doing. And then they would mimic the things that I would do only after I did it, a week after I did it. How you gonna tell me what to do, but you're doing what I did? Baby, I set the tone. Anywho, let me not get off the topic. But how do you set boundaries for who's feeding you? You know, Vex. You European? What, you from Europe? Michelle? How do you set boundaries? This is how you set boundaries. No, don't do that. You set boundaries by saying no. You set boundaries by saying this is what I will do. This is what I want to do. You set boundaries by saying I don't like that. I feel uncomfortable. You set boundaries by asking questions. Why did you do that? Please don't do that again. That's how you set a boundary. Boundaries, just like laws, are set by saying, no, you cannot do this. You cannot push me on the ground and have me scrape my knee. It's just not what's going to happen. Or they were just trying to get you to do your work. Just say that. Girl, what? My work? Girl, what we talk about? I feel like you're not hearing me. What we talking about? So, I will say sometimes people actually do have mental disorders. They was gaslighting you into doing your work. No, baby. Nobody ever has to gaslight me to do the work. You lazy. Sean, don't make me block you. Being disrespectful now. Because these are not... Anywho. Don't be disrespectful, Sean. I'm telling you. I didn't just explain everything I just explained for you to come back and start saying crazy stuff now. So, anywho. Like I was saying. There are people who quite literally may have mental disorders. Right? With those particular people that I was talking about earlier, I questioned, because it was so crazy for me, I questioned if there was some issues going on that I couldn't understand. Some issues behind the closed doors. And later I did find out that they actually did have some issues going on. Something was going on at the job. Shine. I told you that in a professional setting, not in my job, we passed it. It's a different story. I told you the story about the name earlier. That's a different story. Now I said in a professional setting, I was working with people who were siblings, who tried to gaslight me, lie to me, and bully me because they thought because they had years on me that they could, and I was just going to follow suit. And I don't do those things. Yeah, Sean, we lost. It's okay. You a little lost. It's okay. But we're going to keep going. But how can your appearance set boundaries? Appearance? Appearance? I mean, honestly, that's a good question, you know? Your appearance, that's called nonverbal communication. Appearance set boundaries because people are going to treat you differently if you're dressed up as a dirty person, if you're looking very dirty, versus if you're dressed up in a suit and tie, versus if you're dressed up in a party dress and heels, versus if you're walking outside with a bonnet on your head. People are going to treat you differently. That's how you set boundaries, by your appearance. If you're going in an environment, let's say you're going to a job interview, you command respect by dressing professionally, right? That's a boundary, right? Versus if you walk in there looking very casual, you're not going to command as much respect. They may not take you seriously. So, I mean, you definitely can do that. As a woman, as a grown woman who may be dating, you set boundaries by how you dress. If you dress if you dress with all of your itty bitties hanging out, then individuals may try to push up on you more. Versus if you dress more modest, covering, you can be cute still, period, stay cute. But you can dress more modest, more conservative. People are going to, I'm not going to say they're going to, but it's a higher possibility for them to respect you in your space more often. But we're going to get into nonverbal cues in just a second, because I was going to talk about that as well. But like I was saying, there are some people who actually do have disorders that make them, that gives them cause to act more in a particular way than they would if they did not have those disorders. And I've had to be aware of that in my past when dealing with issues like being gaslit and bullied and, you know, for being talked about, you know, these things. I've had to realize, and I've been told, oh, these people have these issues. I'm not going to be specific on what those issues particularly was, but I have to say, oh. Then when I looked into the symptoms of those disorders that these people had, I realized this is why they act the way they act. But prior to that, I was confused. But then the light was shined on them, and I said, oh, it makes sense, right? So sometimes people don't guilt you just to guilt you. Sometimes they actually have a real problem. A real problem. But that's not your responsibility to fix other people's problems. It's not. It's not your responsibility to be nice to them even when they're mean to you. I don't care what they have. That's like people, you know, people think that just because somebody has an intellectual disability that they can act up and act a fool. No, baby. I don't care what you got. You gon' sit your ass down. You gonna listen. Anywho. So you have to ask yourself, does this person most likely have a real issue? Is it an addiction issue? Is it an actual disorder? You know, does this person have a control issue? Does this person have a lot of trauma that they have not been able to overcome? Or they did not do the work to overcome, right? That gives you a more of an insight onto, is this me or them or us together who's keep causing these issues? Because again, you can cause yourself issues if you are not respecting your boundaries, right? So, a lot of people, they're not really, when they are trying to gaslight you and trying to victimize themselves, they're not really reacting to losing love, right? They're reacting to losing access to you. And with access, a lot of the time, that access gave them a sense of control or power or strength that you validated them in, for whatever reason that could be. Whether that is they pushed you and you just got up and said, okay, I'm sorry I was in your way. You know how some people, they get bullied. People get bullied, you know, especially younger kids, they get bullied, right? I'm an adult and I've gotten bullied as an adult, seriously, right? People get bullied, and then when the person getting bullied cries or shows facial expressions of pain or sadness, the person who was bullying gets off on that, and it makes them feel stronger and happier, right? So it's the same way when you stop reacting to these people, they lose that sense of control, because what they're doing is they're validating their power, their abilities in this life, who they are, their character, based on your response of giving into and feeding into them every time, right? So you have to realize, well, that is a number one reason why you should cut somebody off, ghost them, seriously, if they are feeding off of your pain. That could also be like trauma bonding or bonding over trauma, right? And then you grow out of that pain and that person is still stuck there and they're not doing anything. You keep trying to save them, but they're not saving themselves. And then they get resentful because you've grown out of that pain and you're no longer there. So they try to pull you down. That's when you, deuces, gotta go. Gots to get up out of here, right? So the last thing I want you guys to understand when it comes to cutting people off is actions over words. This could be in the relationships, romantic, friendships, anything. Actions over words. And I know you hear this all the time, because people say it all the time. They say it all the time. Understand that communication, over 90% of the way that somebody communicates is going to be through nonverbal cues. What does that mean? Their facial expressions, their tone, their posture, their positioning, their spatial positioning, the way that they dress, the way that they're breathing, the way that their feet are, right? When somebody is telling you yes, but they're shaking their head no, right? That gives you a lot of insight of what somebody is saying and not saying, but communicating over the actual words that they're saying. So you have somebody who's around you and you get anxiety or you are timid around them, right? But they're telling you they love you. But if you don't do what they say, they verbally abuse you, or they financially abuse you, or they physically abuse you, you know? Right? Those are actions. Maybe that the only thing they told you that whole entire day is, I love you. I love you. I love you. I want you in my life. But their actions show that I'm harming you. I'm putting myself before you, my needs before you. I don't care if you cry. I'm going to do actions that make you anxious, that make you timid, that make you cry, right? This is more extreme, of course. This is very extreme. But you have to stop listening to promises. Oh, baby, I cannot wait till we get married, baby. We're going to have the best wedding. I'm going to get you whatever you want. But the man don't even want to buy you a popsicle. The man ain't even bought you a popsicle. The man ain't even did the work to see you. The man don't even want to drive down the street. You live 5 minutes down the street. The man ain't even drove down the street to see you. Can't even walk down the street to see you. But y'all on the phone talking about, oh my God, you so beautiful. You're the prettiest person in this world. I just want to give you the world. They pouring out all these emotions, right? Go get water. It's chill. I've been drinking water this whole time. I got you. You ain't got to worry about me. You ain't got to worry about me, right? These people are apologizing to you and saying, baby, I'm sorry that I'm hurting your heart. I'm sorry. I don't know why I have to do this. I don't know why I keep cheating on you. My dad always cheated on my mom. I think it's just in my genes. I don't know. I just keep cheating on you, but I love you. I want this for us. Even though I cheated on you 12 times. Y'all not about to be putting these negativities. And that's why you're blocked. Negative energy. So anywho, you know, people can say what they say, but their actions are going to tell you more than what they're saying to you, right? Their actions, they're telling you how much they love you and they want you in their life and that you're the future mother of their children and that you're their wife, you're wifey. Man, if somebody calling you wifey, be aware. Just be on your P's and Q's. They telling you how they can't wait for you to meet their family and you the perfect person in this entire world. But it can, yeah. They telling you all these things, but their actions is they never took you on a date. They calling you at all times of the night, 3 o'clock in the morning. They actually talking to 3 other girls at the same time as talking to you. You probably just don't know it, right? Those are actions. They haven't even planned anything for you. They haven't even planned a date. Those are actions. That's what's going to tell you. That's what's going to tell you. So you don't have to have a conversation. I do believe in ghosting people. I used to do it more often, but as I get older, I don't do it as much. Typically now I just say, hey, I don't think we're compatible. That's my new favorite word that I've been using this year, is I don't think we're compatible. I hope everything goes well for you. Good luck. Right? Because you don't have to have a conversation and tell them what the problem is if you don't want to fix it. It's not your responsibility. Now, I've had people who I've told them, hey, I don't think this is going to work. We're not compatible. And they come back and they say, well, what happened? Can you explain to me what happened? Then I'll go through and I'll say, well, A, B, C, D, and E. And then we'll not talk, you know. They'd be like, okay, accept the consequences and move on, right? But if you explain to them and they're going to be like, well, I didn't mean it like that. Well, guess what's going to happen? Every time they do it, that's going to be their same response. I didn't mean it like that. Well, how did you mean it? Ask that question. How did you mean it? So you don't have to have a conversation with everybody. You can communicate, you know, and say, hey, I don't want to continue with this relationship. But you don't have to explain every detail why, unless you just feel so led to do so. But it's 2026. The amount of relationships or dating or people you're going to come by is going to be a lot. So to have to explain to everybody instead of just saying, hey, we're not compatible and moving on may be a lot more work than what's necessary, right? So that was a conversation. I hope you guys got something out of it. Like I said, I've experienced this way too many times. I've gotten to a point in my life where it's like, hey, it's either me or you, buddy. It's either me or you, buddy. And I'm not going to be roadkill. I'm not going to be in your circus. I'm not going to be in your delusion. People are delusional. I'm telling you. It's not your responsibility to save people, to teach them about themselves, to be their therapist, to be their mentor, to be their teacher, to give them a foundation, to give them the love their mama never gave them. You definitely should never do that. Trying to love somebody more than their mama loved them. You really shouldn't do that. If somebody's mama didn't love them, that's their standards for life most of the time. They haven't done any work. Most of the time, that's their standards for life. So you shouldn't do more because guess what? They're not going to acknowledge it because they don't care. They don't care because their mom didn't even do that for them. So who are you? Most of the time. So this is for friendships, dating, parents, grandparents, sister, brother, cousin. If you say don't do this and you know in your spirit you are valid, in your spirit, meaning you have already known that this is real. That's what validating something is knowing that it's real, that it's consistently going to happen. That's what validating is, when you know it's going to consistently happen. That's how you know something is valid. Well, every time I hang out with these friends and they make fun of me, I always feel bad. That's your body validating a feeling. That's you. You need to validate yourself instead of having somebody else be like, oh, you should feel bad, and then you feel bad because somebody else told you to feel bad, right? You have to be able to set standards. I even set standards with my grandma, and not out of disrespect, because I would never disrespect her. But I definitely had to say, hey, grandma, don't do that. My grandma, she real one. I love my grandma. She a real one. She taught me how to be a real one. And she be like, hey, you know, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it like that. I ain't going to do it. And she don't do it. She don't do it again. You're going to have to set standards. Not everybody thinks the way that you do. Not everybody's in your mind. Not everybody knows how you feel. People might do something they won't even be on purpose. They don't even purposely try to disrespect you or harm you. That's just who they are. So you have to say, hey, when you did that, I didn't like da-da-da. Now, let's get into it. Because you can set a boundary, and it could be with a certain understanding about what's going on. And then you have a conversation with somebody, and they explain in a way that gives you insight on what's really going on. And it changes your perspective. And maybe you realize, well, maybe I was being a little too sensitive. Or maybe I just didn't really understand what was going on, right? It could be like the first thing I think about is you're in a drive-thru and somebody gives you your food and they tell you to have a good day, right? And they're looking out the window. They're looking at the cars out the window and you say, I feel like you're rushing me. Don't do that. They're going to be like, I'm just counting how many cars because there's an extra car. I want to make sure everybody gets their right meal. And you're sitting over there like, don't do that. You're making me uncomfortable. You're making me feel anxious. But you hear what it is? You're making me. Right? Nobody can make you feel something like that. You know, you're feeling that way. Right? So that could be one situation to where I could be like, okay, maybe your boundaries doing too much. You know, maybe you're doing too much. You're trying to control other people's behaviors. Sometimes that's when a boundary is overdoing it. You're overdoing it when you're trying to control other people's behaviors, when their behaviors have nothing to do with you, right? So my husband lost his partner a few years ago. With his friend, I said I didn't want to go because I don't know how I feel if he got a message or how I have to help him if he didn't get a message. He got upset. He got upset I didn't want to go. I feel like I was within my rights to say I didn't want to go. I mean, yeah, you're within your rights. That's definitely one of those questions. My husband lost his partner a few years ago. Partner, what you mean? Like a work partner? He was married before you? What you mean? So he's asking for emotional support. That's what he's asking, Matthew. Your partner is asking for emotional support while he experiences this. He wants partnership and support in those moments. Oh, he's married before you. And he wants, I didn't want to go. I feel like I was with him. I feel like he got a message on how help him if he didn't get a message. So honestly, I'm not seeing a boundary being crossed, Matthew, right? Because what I hear you say is I don't want to have to help him. Which if he's your partner, I don't understand why you don't want to help your partner. What is the consequences of him going that you don't want to experience is what I would want to say. Because when I hear that, I hear you just don't want to help him in these times where he is emotional. You know, so I don't know. My first thoughts reading that, Matthew, was the McDonald's story I just told you. You know, I don't, maybe if you said it's against my religion, maybe you said I'm Catholic or something, I'm Christian, it's against my religion, I might be like, oh, okay. But you said you didn't want to have to help him. And I think help him process those emotions. or be supportive of him while he processes those emotions. Are you afraid or something? Why you don't want to go to a meeting? I think that what I'm feeling is that I'm not hearing the consequences of going to the medium. Like, what's wrong with helping him while he's there? I guess that's how you set a better boundary, is you explain, especially with a partner. A lot of the conversation I was giving you guys earlier was not with people who you're committed to. I should have made that more clear earlier. These are things that people you were not really that committed to. People who were pushing your boundaries consistently. But with a partner, you're married, that's a little different. I feel like you're a little bit more obligated in those times to be more selfless in those moments. Sometimes. But yeah, I think that, when you explain those type of things, make sure he understands how much you love him and that you want to support him, and find other ways to support him outright. Because I could see him maybe feeling abandoned by you in these moments. And a lot of times when people feel abandoned, they find other sources to meet their needs, So I don't want that to happen, to where he's outsourcing his needs being met by somebody else. We got 48 votes though. 90% of people said they cut somebody off. So yeah. Yeah, before we get off of here, because I need to get off, y'all. The amount of times that I've come on these lives, like, literally, like, going through it, I said I can't leave them another day. I need to go on there for them today. I feel a lot better than I did yesterday. I might as well, So before we get off of here, I just want to say, like, again, with this conversation is more for people who you're not entangled with. No commitments, no paper signed, right? You can't just cut people off when you committed to them, you can't just do that, I think that this conversation, can go a little bit deeper. There could be different ways that I can explain these things, because, thank you, Rico, because there are some people who's going to feel like, well, I don't feel good about this, so that's enough for me to cut somebody off. That's not what I'm trying to tell you guys. I'm not trying to tell you guys to cut people off just because you don't feel good about certain stuff. What I really want you guys to leave with is understanding the consequences of actions that occur. Whether that's consequences to your physical body, your emotions, your mental, your environment, other relationships, right? When you know the consequences, that's when you can consistently and confidently enforce boundaries. And when your boundaries are not being respected, that is when you have the right to cut people off, right? So that's really what I want you guys to leave with today. I want you guys to have healthy relationships. Allow people to be in your life. Don't put a brick wall up, right? Set boundaries. Communicate them, enforce them, give actions in enforcing by removing yourself from those environments. You can give people a second chance, but a third, fourth, fifth, sixth is a little ridiculous. Yo, I really don't know how to communicate with ladies. 5 minutes, please. What you mean 5 minutes, please? You want me to teach you how to communicate with a lady? In what way? See, this is why I gotta ask questions. What way are you communicating with this lady? You telling me in general, you go to the store, the grocery store, and you checking out and the lady checking you out, you scared to communicate? Or are you saying romance? Like you don't know how to approach, or you don't know how to maintain a conversation. These are pragmatic skills. I love these things. I live for these things. So I'm gonna give you 5 minutes, friend, and I'm gonna get up off of here. What else you want to say, Michelle? Girl, I've been calling you Michelle, but your name is Michael. That's crazy. Well, I thought your name was Michelle this whole time. That's crazy. But your name is Michael. Your name is Michael. That's crazy. Yeah. So, learn to end relationships quicker, sooner than later. You will save yourself a lot of suffering. As I get older, that's one thing I learned. When I was younger, especially with dating, I used to be like, oh, I'll go on a date with this person. Oh, I'll keep talking to them because I didn't have nothing else to do. But really, it was hindering me from getting to where I was going, wasting my time, talking to people I'm just not compatible with, you know? It's just not necessary for you to surround yourself with energies that are not putting you in a direction that you want to go, you know? Holding a conversation. So this is called pragmatic skills, Michael. So maintaining a conversation is very easy. Initially, when you are meeting someone, you have to greet them. A greeting goes like this. Hello. How are you doing today? And then you wait. There are rules to a conversation. The rules are you need to have turn taking. So you need to allow people to finish their thoughts. You need to have proper body language facing them and eyes on the speaker. Give them your undivided attention, right? You need to ask questions. You need to make comments. Those are the few underlying rules to a conversation. So once you are initially meet somebody, y'all both said y'all highs. How are you? How is your day going? What's your name? Michael, I'm putting you on. Ask the girl, what is your name? Let me tell you something. Michael, if you're talking to a beautiful girl, don't overly compliment them. They've heard it all before. Skip that part of the conversation. If you're going to compliment them, compliment an action that they've done. Don't compliment their looks overly. And that's not in a way to be manipulative or anything. Because some people are going to tell you, don't compliment their looks. It's going to get to their head. No. I'm telling you, don't compliment their looks overly. You can do it a couple of times, maybe. Well, overly, because it gets annoying. It's like, gets to a point where it's like, oh my God, right? Y'all greeted each other. You set the tone for the conversation. Now, this is the next rule. You ask a question. Okay? You ask a question. You say, what are you doing here today? Let that person respond. Then, the way you keep the conversation going is you make a comment to their response. You say, what are you doing here today? Y'all at the grocery store. She said, oh, I'm just getting my groceries for the week. I'm meal prepping. And then you say, you make a comment and you say, oh, you meal prep. You can say, or you can ask a question. You can say, how long have you been meal prepping? Oh, I meal prep as well. What days do you meal prep? How many days a week do you meal prep? What's your favorite thing to meal prep? Oh, I see you got these particular bowls. That's a good thing to use to meal prep, right? That's how you keep a conversation going. You ask questions. You make comments. You stay on topic. You face your speaker. You engage in a conversation. You know, these are the things I love to teach. Book a free 15-minute consultation down with me. I can put you on game. This is the field that I'm in, y'all. Quite literally. I teach people to do this every day. Seriously. You said, man, I haven't talked to my friend since October. We cut each other off. She'll probably be riding around my house come Valentine's Day. What? Sean, what you talking about? You talking about how? Michael, what you mean how? How to book a free 15-minute consultation? It's in the description. So if you're on live, it may be up here. If you're rewatching the video, it's going to be down below in the description. It's going to be one of those first links. It says free 15-minute consultation. Just click on there, book a time within your ability, and move on from there. But yeah, y'all. I would love to talk more about pragmatic skills, but for tonight, I need to save my velum and to save the soft palate as much as possible because it's not going for it. I need to go hydrate and soothe with some warm water. So I'm going to see you guys later. And maybe, thank you, Rico. Thank you. Happy Black History Month. Let me make sure I say that. Happy Black History Month. Thank you. Hopefully I feel better. I might go on live again sometime throughout the week. Just because I didn't go on live Sunday. Who knows? Keep an eye out. But I'll see you guys later. Y'all have a wonderful night. The conversation, book a free 15-minute consultation, Michael. I'll see y'all later. Bye bye.